My name is Martha Johnson, and at 68, I never imagined my own son would treat me like a financial burden. After losing Frank, my husband of 35 years, I moved in with Travis, thinking he was my safety net. Then came that awful Tuesday when he waved a $437 utility bill in my face and said those words that shattered my heart. "You cost too much to keep." That moment changed everything, leading me down an unexpected path. Before I tell you how I ended up living with my son's ex-wife Samantha, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button if you've ever felt betrayed by family. Frank and I built a beautiful life together. For 35 years we shared a modest home in a friendly neighborhood, raised our son Travis, and planned for a retirement that would be comfortable, if not luxurious. Frank worked as an electrical engineer, while I balanced part-time administrative jobs with being a mother. We weren't wealthy, but we were happy and secure. At least that's what I thought. 8 months ago, on a crisp autumn morning, Frank collapsed in our kitchen. The paramedics tried everything, but a massive heart attack took him instantly. The medical examiner said he likely felt little pain, but that provided minimal comfort as I faced a world without my partner. The shock of losing Frank was quickly compounded by another devastating revelation. Despite my belief that we had our finances in order, I discovered Frank had cashed out much of his life insurance policy 3 years earlier to help Travis with a down payment on his house, something he never mentioned to me. The remaining policy barely covered the funeral expenses, leaving me with only our modest savings and my small Social Security checks. Our mortgage payments, which had seemed manageable with 2 incomes, suddenly became impossible. After 3 months of draining my savings to keep up, I made the heartbreaking decision to sell our family home. The housing market in our area had dipped, and after paying off the remainder of our mortgage, I was left with far less than I had hoped. It was during this turbulent time that Travis offered what seemed like a lifeline. "Mom, why don't you move in with me? Just temporarily until you figure things out," he said. At 35, Travis had a successful career as a financial analyst, a spacious 4-bedroom house, and lived alone since his divorce from Samantha 2 years earlier. I hesitated initially. Living with my adult son seemed like crossing a boundary, potentially threatening both our independence. But with few options and dwindling resources, I accepted his offer with immense gratitude. "I can't thank you enough," I told him as he helped move my few remaining possessions into his spare bedroom. "I promise I won't be here long, just until I can get back on my feet." "Take all the time you need, Mom," Travis reassured me with a hug. "It's the least I can do after everything you've done for me." The first few weeks went smoothly. I tried to make myself useful, cooking meals, doing laundry, and keeping the house tidy. Travis seemed appreciative, often complimenting my cooking and telling me how nice it was to come home to a clean house and a home-cooked meal. But subtle changes began to emerge. Travis started making comments about the grocery bill. "Wow, you went through that coffee quickly. Or do we really need name-brand cereal?" Small things, but they made me increasingly self-conscious. I was determined to contribute financially despite my limited income. I offered Travis $500 monthly for rent and utilities, nearly half of my Social Security check. He accepted it with a casual "Thanks, Mom, that helps," but I sensed it wasn't enough in his eyes. Things became more complicated when Vanessa entered the picture. Travis had been dating her for a few months, but she began staying over more frequently after I moved in. Tall, blonde, and 28, Vanessa worked in commercial real estate and carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to getting what she wanted. From the beginning, I sensed her discomfort with my presence. Her smiles never reached her eyes, and she had a way of talking about me in the third person even when I was in the room. "Does your mom always watch this much TV?" Or, "Will your mom be joining us for dinner?" The message was clear. I was an unwelcome addition to their relationship. I couldn't help but compare Vanessa to Samantha, Travis's ex-wife. Samantha had been warm and genuine, treating me more like a friend than an in-law. Even after the divorce, she sent me birthday cards and called occasionally to check in. Travis discouraged these communications, saying it was weird for me to stay in touch with his ex, so our contact became infrequent. Still, I missed her authenticity and kindness, qualities that seemed increasingly rare in my new living situation. As the weeks passed, I felt increasingly like an intruder in Travis's home, walking on eggshells to minimize my presence. What had begun as a son's generous offer to his widowed mother was morphing into something that made me feel small and burdensome. But with nowhere else to go and limited resources, I smiled through my discomfort, telling myself things would improve once I found a more permanent solution. By my third month living with Travis, subtle annoyances had evolved into unmistakable tension. What started as casual comments about grocery expenses transformed into a detailed accounting of my existence in his home. One evening, I accidentally left a small bathroom light on while visiting a neighbor. When I returned, Travis was waiting, his laptop open to a spreadsheet. "Mom, did you know leaving that light on for 5 hours costs about 75 cents? That's $3 a week if it happens daily, $12 a month, $144 a year." I stared at him, bewildered by this meticulous calculation.
I'm sorry, Travis.
It was an accident. I know, he sighed. But all these little accidents add up. That's when I first saw it, the spreadsheet titled Mom's Expenses. Every column represented something I apparently consumed or used. Water, electricity, natural gas, internet bandwidth, groceries, even toilet paper. Travis had calculated it all down to the penny. Vanessa's presence amplified everything. She had practically moved in, though Travis never officially acknowledged this change in living arrangements. Her clothes gradually took over more closet space, her organic protein powders claimed kitchen counter territory, and her scented candles permeated the house with artificial vanilla. Her comments became less veiled with time. "Travis, your water bill is so high this month. I wonder why," she would say while looking pointedly at me. Or, "I tried to watch my show last night, but the internet was so slow with 3 people using it. I overheard them arguing one night while I pretended to sleep." "She's your mother, I get it," Vanessa whispered harshly. "But we have no privacy. This was supposed to be temporary. What am I supposed to do? Kick her out?" "She has nowhere to go," Travis responded, though his defense lacked conviction. "She's an adult, Travis. She needs to figure it out like everyone else does." I began modifying my behavior to be less noticeable. I took shorter showers, washed my clothes with Travis's to create fewer loads, and ate smaller portions. I charged my phone at the public library and used their free Wi-Fi instead of Travis's internet. I even started using the bathroom at the nearby grocery store to save on water and toilet paper at home. The saddest part was remembering how different Travis had been as a child, loving and pathetic, always the first to offer help to others. He was the boy who gave his allowance to a classmate who couldn't afford lunch, who rescued stray animals and brought them home. What had happened to that compassionate child? Had adult life hardened him, or had those qualities been buried under financial anxiety and Vanessa's influence? After 4 months of this increasingly strained arrangement, I attempted to discuss finding my own place. "I've been looking at some senior apartments," I mentioned one evening as Travis reviewed his finances at the dining table. He looked up surprised. "Those places are expensive, Mom. Have you checked what they cost? There's a subsidized complex about 20 minutes from here. The waiting list is 6 to 8 months, but..." 6 to 8 months? He frowned. "That's a long time." "I know, but it's affordable on my income." "Well, you don't need to rush. You can stay here while you wait," he said, though his tone conveyed the opposite message. These mixed signals became a pattern. Travis would verbally express that I was welcome, while his actions communicated that I was a burden. This contradiction left me in an emotional limbo, unable to feel settled yet without clear cause to leave. My job search proved equally disheartening. At 58, with an employment gap while I cared for Frank during his earlier health issues, I found myself essentially unhireable for positions matching my administrative experience. Retail and food service applications went unanswered. My age, though never explicitly mentioned, seemed an insurmountable barrier. Depression settled over me like a heavy blanket. I lost interest in cooking, one of my few remaining pleasures. I slept longer hours and spoke less. Travis barely noticed these changes, or if he did, he didn't mention them. The situation reached a new low during a dinner with Vanessa's parents. Travis had invited them over, and I offered to cook, hoping to contribute positively to the evening. I prepared my special lasagna, a dish that had always been Travis's favorite. As we ate, Vanessa's mother Patricia asked about my living situation. Before I could answer, Vanessa jumped in. Martha is staying with us while she gets back on her feet after losing her husband. It's so hard finding affordable housing these days, especially for seniors on fixed incomes. The way she emphasized seniors and fixed incomes made me sound ancient and destitute. I felt myself shrinking in my chair. How generous of you both, Patricia remarked, though her tone suggested she found the arrangement peculiar. Well, she's family, Travis said flatly, avoiding my eyes. I excused myself early that night, retreating to my room where silent tears soaked my pillow. The home I once felt grateful for had become a place of quiet humiliation. Yet I still held out hope that things would improve, that Travis would remember the values I had raised him with, or that I would find a solution that preserved both my dignity and our relationship. That hope was rapidly fading, but I wasn't yet prepared for how completely it would shatter. By my third month living with Travis, subtle annoyances had evolved into unmistakable tension. What started as casual comments about grocery expenses transformed into a detailed accounting of my existence in his home. One evening, I accidentally left a small bathroom light on while visiting a neighbor. When I returned, Travis was waiting, his laptop open to a spreadsheet. Mom, did you know leaving that light on for 5 hours costs about 75 cents? That's $3 a week if it happens daily, $12 a month, $144 a year. I stared at him, bewildered by this meticulous calculation.
I'm sorry, Travis.
It was an accident. I know, he sighed. But all these little accidents add up. That's when I first saw it, the spreadsheet titled Mom's Expenses. Every column represented something I apparently consumed or used. Water, electricity, natural gas, internet bandwidth, groceries, even toilet paper. Travis had calculated it all down to the penny. Vanessa's presence amplified everything. She had practically moved in, though Travis never officially acknowledged this change in living arrangements. Her clothes gradually took over more closet space, her organic protein powders claimed kitchen counter territory, and her scented candles permeated the house with artificial vanilla. Her comments became less veiled with time. Travis, your water bill is so high this month. I wonder why, she would say while looking pointedly at me. Or, I tried to watch my show last night, but the internet was so slow with 3 people using it. I overheard them arguing one night while I pretended to sleep. She's your mother, I get it, Vanessa whispered harshly. But we have no privacy. This was supposed to be temporary. What am I supposed to do? Kick her out? She has nowhere to go, Travis responded, though his defense lacked conviction. She's an adult, Travis. She needs to figure it out like everyone else does. I began modifying my behavior to be less noticeable. I took shorter showers, washed my clothes with Travis's to create fewer loads, and ate smaller portions. I charged my phone at the public library and used their free Wi-Fi instead of Travis's internet. I even started using the bathroom at the nearby grocery store to save on water and toilet paper at home. The saddest part was remembering how different Travis had been as a child, loving and pathetic, always the first to offer help to others. He was the boy who gave his allowance to a classmate who couldn't afford lunch, who rescued stray animals and brought them home. What had happened to that compassionate child? Had adult life hardened him, or had those qualities been buried under financial anxiety and Vanessa's influence? After 4 months of this increasingly strained arrangement, I attempted to discuss finding my own place. I've been looking at some senior apartments, I mentioned one evening as Travis reviewed his finances at the dining table. He looked up surprised. Those places are expensive, Mom. Have you checked what they cost? There's a subsidized complex about 20 minutes from here. The waiting list is 6 to 8 months, but 6 to 8 months? He frowned. That's a long time. I know, but it's affordable on my income. Well, you don't need to rush. You can stay here while you wait, he said, though his tone conveyed the opposite message. These mixed signals became a pattern. Travis would verbally express that I was welcome, while his actions communicated that I was a burden. This contradiction left me in an emotional limbo, unable to feel settled yet without clear cause to leave. My job search proved equally disheartening. At 58, with an employment gap while I cared for Frank during his earlier health issues, I found myself essentially unhireable for positions matching my administrative experience. Retail and food service applications went unanswered. My age, though never explicitly mentioned, seemed an insurmountable barrier. Depression settled over me like a heavy blanket. I lost interest in cooking, one of my few remaining pleasures. I slept longer hours and spoke less. Travis barely noticed these changes, or if he did, he didn't mention them. The situation reached a new low during a dinner with Vanessa's parents. Travis had invited them over, and I offered to cook, hoping to contribute positively to the evening. I prepared my special lasagna, a dish that had always been Travis's favorite. As we ate, Vanessa's mother Patricia asked about my living situation. Before I could answer, Vanessa jumped in. Martha is staying with us while she gets back on her feet after losing her husband. It's so hard finding affordable housing these days, especially for seniors on fixed incomes. The way she emphasized seniors and fixed incomes made me sound ancient and destitute. I felt myself shrinking in my chair. How generous of you both, Patricia remarked, though her tone suggested she found the arrangement peculiar. Well, she's family, Travis said flatly, avoiding my eyes. I excused myself early that night, retreating to my room where silent tears soaked my pillow. The home I once felt grateful for had become a place of quiet humiliation. Yet I still held out hope that things would improve, that Travis would remember the values I had raised him with, or that I would find a solution that preserved both my dignity and our relationship. That hope was rapidly fading, but I wasn't yet prepared for how completely it would shatter. The day that changed everything started normally enough. I had been living with Travis for nearly 6 months, settling into the uncomfortable routine of trying to be invisible in his home. That morning I made breakfast for Travis before he left for work, then spent the day applying for jobs online at the library to avoid using his electricity and internet. When I returned home that evening, the atmosphere was immediately tense. Travis's car was already in the driveway, unusual for a Tuesday when he typically worked late. As I entered, I found him at the dining table, papers spread before him, his face flushed with anger. "Do you know what this is?" he demanded, waving a paper at me. "I don't, Travis," I answered cautiously, setting down my purse. "This is our utility bill. $437. That's $86 higher than the same month last year when I lived alone." My stomach dropped. "I'm sorry it's higher. I try to be careful." "Careful?" He gave a harsh laugh. "Mom, do you have any idea how expensive you are to keep? I've calculated it. Between the extra utilities, the groceries, the increased water usage, you're costing me nearly $700 a month beyond what you contribute." The words "expensive to keep" hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't a person to him anymore. I was a line item, an expense, a financial burden to be calculated and resented. From the kitchen doorway, Vanessa watched with poorly concealed satisfaction. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, a slight smirk playing at her lips as Travis continued his tirade. "I've been tracking everything," he continued, pulling up his now familiar spreadsheet on his laptop. "Your showers average 12 minutes. That's gallons of hot water. You watch TV for approximately 4 hours daily. You do your laundry separately from ours, which is inefficient. You leave lights on. The heating in your room is set 2 degrees higher than the rest of the house." Each accusation felt like another nail in my heart. This wasn't my son speaking. This was an accountant tallying up the cost of my existence. "I didn't realize," I whispered, fighting back tears. "I can be more careful. Maybe take showers at the YMCA. Or..." "That's not the point." Travis slammed his hand on the table. "The point is that this arrangement isn't working. It was supposed to be temporary, but it's been half a year, and you're no closer to moving out than when you arrived." I couldn't hold back the tears any longer. They flowed freely down my cheeks as memories flooded my mind. Nights spent walking the floor with baby Travis during colic, working extra shifts to pay for his soccer camps and college application fees. The second mortgage we took out to help with his college tuition when his scholarships weren't enough. "I raised you," I said softly. "I never once calculated what you cost to keep." Something flickered in Travis's eyes. Perhaps shame, perhaps recognition, but it vanished quickly, replaced by cold detachment. That was different. I was your child. You chose to have me. And you chose to invite me here. I reminded him, finding a small spark of dignity amidst my hurt. Because I thought it would be temporary, he shouted. Not a permanent arrangement. I retreated to my room without another word, closing the door quietly behind me. Once alone, I let the full weight of the betrayal crash over me. My body shook with silent sobs as I curled up on the bed, clutching a photo of Frank and me from happier times. How had it come to this? Where had my loving son gone? The boy who once made me Mother's Day cards promising to take care of me when I was old had become a man who resented every dollar spent on my existence. Throughout the night, sleep eluded me. I stared at the ceiling, replaying Travis's words and considering my options. I had about $4,000 saved from my Social Security checks. Not enough for a rental deposit and first month's rent in our expensive area, especially without proof of income 3 times the rent amount, as most landlords required. Friends my age were dealing with their own retirement challenges or had moved to more affordable states. My sister lived across the country and was caring for her husband with Alzheimer's. There seemed to be no easy solution. By morning, however, one thing was clear. I could not stay where I was so clearly unwanted. Whatever came next, whatever hardship I might face, would be better than being treated as a financial liability by my own child. When I emerged from my room, Travis was making coffee, acting as if nothing had happened, a pattern I had grown accustomed to after our conflicts. "Good morning," he said casually. "There's coffee if you want some." I took a deep breath. "Travis, I'll be moving out by the end of the week." He turned, surprise evident on his face. "Mom, about last night, I was stressed about work. I shouldn't have taken it out on you." "This isn't about last night. It's about the past 6 months," I said quietly. "I won't stay where I'm not wanted." "I never said you weren't wanted," he protested, though the relief in his eyes betrayed him. "You didn't have to say it. You showed me in 100 small ways, and last night you made it unmistakably clear." "Where will you go?" he asked, and I couldn't tell if the question stemmed from concern or fear that I might not actually leave. "I'll figure it out," I answered, borrowing Vanessa's callous phrase from the argument I'd overheard. "That's what adults do, right?" As I walked back to my room to begin packing, I realized something had shifted within me. The pain was still there, raw and throbbing, but alongside it was something unexpected, a tiny seed of liberation. For the first time since Frank died, I was making a decision based not on desperate necessity but on self-respect. My son might see me as too expensive to keep, but I was beginning to understand that my dignity was too valuable to give away. With 3 days to find somewhere to go, I began making desperate phone calls. Senior housing facilities had months-long waiting lists. Extended stay hotels would deplete my savings within weeks. Friends expressed sympathy but had no space to offer. With each call that led nowhere, my anxiety mounted. Then, scrolling through my phone contacts, I paused at Samantha's name. Travis and Samantha had been married for 4 years before divorcing 2 years ago. Unlike many divorce situations, Samantha and I had maintained a warm relationship. She still sent me Christmas cards and occasionally called to check in, though these communications had dwindled after I moved in with Travis. Would it be inappropriate to reach out to her? Would it betray Travis somehow? These questions circled in my mind as my finger hovered over her number. But with options dwindling and time running short, I finally pressed call. "Martha." Samantha answered, surprise evident in her voice. "It's so good to hear from you. How are you doing?" "I've been better," I admitted, my voice cracking slightly. "I hate to bother you, but I could use some advice." I explained my situation in broad strokes, trying to avoid painting Travis in too negative a light despite my hurt. Samantha listened quietly, occasionally making sympathetic sounds. "So I need to find somewhere to go quickly," I concluded. "I thought maybe you might know of affordable rentals in the area, or perhaps a temporary room for rent situation." The line went quiet for a moment before Samantha spoke. "Martha, I have a spare bedroom. It's yours if you want it." The offer was so unexpected that at first I couldn't respond. "You don't have to answer right now," she continued. "But I've been living alone since buying this condo after the divorce, and I have plenty of space. It could be temporary while you look for something else, Or longer if it works out. That's incredibly generous, I finally managed. But wouldn't it be strange? I'm Travis's mother. You're also a person who needs help, Samantha said simply. Besides, Travis and I have been divorced for 2 years. I don't owe him any explanations about who stays in my guest room. Despite my desperate situation, I hesitated. Let me think about it and call you back? Of course. The offer stands whenever you need it. After hanging up, I sat on the edge of my bed, turning the possibility over in my mind. It would certainly be unconventional, perhaps even awkward. But as I considered the alternatives, depleting my savings at a motel, couch surfing, or worst of all, swallowing my pride and staying with Travis, Samantha's offer began to seem like a lifeline. I called her back within the hour and accepted. Telling Travis was another matter entirely. I waited until dinner, when he asked casually about my plans. Have you figured out where you're going? He asked, spooning pasta onto his plate, his tone suggesting he was inquiring about a minor errand rather than my entire living situation. Yes, I said, taking a deep breath. Samantha has offered me her spare room while I get back on my feet. Travis froze, fork halfway to his mouth. Samantha? My ex-wife Samantha. Yes. He set his fork down slowly. You've got to be kidding. That's completely inappropriate. Is it? I asked. She has space and I need somewhere to go. It's a practical solution. It's a betrayal is what it is, he snapped. Of all the people in the world, you choose her? I didn't have many options, Travis. And Samantha has always been kind to me. So this is what? Some kind of revenge for last night. I shook my head, suddenly tired of the drama.
No, Travis.
This is me solving a problem you made very clear is not yours to solve. Samantha offered help when I needed it. It's as simple as that. He pushed away from the table and stalked out of the room, leaving me alone with my cooling pasta and the realization that his reaction had just confirmed I was making the right decision. The next 2 days passed in tense silence. I packed my few belongings, clothes, personal items, and the small collection of mementos I'd kept after selling the house. Travis maintained a cold distance, speaking only when necessary. On Friday afternoon, a car horn sounded outside. Through the window, I saw Samantha's silver SUV in the driveway. Travis appeared in the doorway of my room as I zipped my final suitcase. She couldn't even have the decency to wait in the car, he muttered. She's helping me move my things, I explained. It's not some kind of statement. When I opened the front door, Samantha stood there with a warm smile that faltered slightly upon seeing Travis behind me. Hi, Martha, she said, giving me a quick hug before nodding at Travis. Travis. Samantha, he replied coldly. I see you're still interfering in my life. I'm helping your mother, she corrected him calmly. That's all this is. Before the tension could escalate further, I directed Samantha to my bags. Between the two of us, we loaded everything into her vehicle in just a few trips. Travis watched from the doorway, arms crossed, expression stormy. As I prepared to leave, I approached him for a goodbye. Thank you for letting me stay these past months, I said, meaning it despite everything. I hope we can talk soon, when things are less emotional. He didn't uncross his arms. You're making a mistake. She's only doing this to get back at me for something. Goodbye, Travis, I said softly, recognizing that any further conversation would only lead to more hurt. I love you. The drive to Samantha's condo was quiet at first, both of us processing the tension of the departure. Finally, Samantha broke the silence. Are you okay? She asked.
No, iyan suara tunasli.
But I think I will be. Her condo was in a modern complex about 20 minutes from Travis's house, close enough to be in the same community, but far enough to avoid accidental encounters. As she showed me around, I was struck by how warm and inviting the space felt, with colorful throw pillows, plants in every corner, and walls adorned with local artwork. The guest room isn't huge, she apologized as she opened the door to a modestly sized but bright room with a comfortable-looking queen bed, dresser, and small desk. It's perfect, I assured her, feeling the first stirrings of relief. I can't thank you enough for this, Samantha. You can thank me by stopping that, she said with a gentle smile. You don't need to keep thanking me. We're family. Or at least, we were. And some bonds don't break just because a marriage does. That night, in a strange bed in my former daughter-in-law's guest room, I cried again. Not from despair this time, but from a complex mixture of gratitude, lingering hurt, and the tentative hope that perhaps this unusual arrangement might be the beginning of something healing. The morning sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains momentarily disoriented me. Then the events of the previous day rushed back, the tense departure from Travis's house, the quiet drive with Samantha, the relief of being welcomed into a space without judgment or calculation. A gentle knock on the door preceded Samantha's voice. "Martha? I've made coffee if you're up." In the kitchen, Samantha had set 2 mugs beside a French press. "I remembered you like it strong," she said, pouring the dark liquid. "I have cream and sugar, or honey if you prefer." This simple act of remembering how I took my coffee, something Travis had never bothered to learn despite my living with him for months, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I said, trying to hide my emotion by focusing on stirring honey into my mug. "First mornings in new places are always weird," Samantha commented, giving me space to compose myself. "When I moved here after the divorce, I cried into my coffee for a week straight." Her candor opened a door. "How did you do it?" I asked. "Start over, I mean." Samantha leaned against the counter, considering. "Not gracefully," she admitted with a small laugh. "There were a lot of ice cream dinners and Netflix binges. But eventually I realized I had a chance to create exactly the life I wanted, without compromise." Over breakfast, Samantha shared more about her post-divorce journey. After separating from Travis, she had used her settlement to make a down payment on the condo and returned to school to complete her business degree. Now 33, she worked as a marketing coordinator for a local nonprofit focused on women's professional development. "The divorce was actually a blessing, though I couldn't see it at the time," she confided. "Travis and I wanted different things. He wanted a wife who would prioritize his career, his home, his needs. I wanted partnership." Her words resonated uncomfortably, echoing my own recent experience with my son. "Travis has changed," I said quietly. "Or maybe he was always this way and I didn't see it." Samantha hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Money was always complicated with Travis. He tracked every expense in our marriage. At first, I thought it was just good financial management, but it became a form of control. If I spent too much on groceries or bought clothes he deemed unnecessary, I'd have to justify it. The spreadsheet, the calculations, the resentment over resources shared. The pattern suddenly became clear, extending beyond my experience to a deeper personality trait in my son. "I never raised him to be that way," I said, more to myself than to Samantha. "Of course you didn't," she assured me. "Some things aren't about parenting. They're choices people make as adults." Over the next week, with Samantha's encouragement, I began searching for part-time work. My previous job hunting had been haphazard and disheartened, but Samantha helped me update my resume and practiced interview questions with me. "You have skills employers want," she insisted when I expressed doubt about my employability at 58. "You just need to frame them correctly." Through a connection at Samantha's nonprofit, I secured an interview at a local bookstore that needed an assistant manager. The owner, Judy, was herself in her 60s and valued mature employees who could connect with her customer base of retirees and book club members. To my astonishment, she offered me the position on the spot. 28 hours a week, $15 an hour, plus employee discount, she said with a warm smile. "When can you start?" I floated home on a cloud of disbelief and pride. My first job in years, my first step toward true independence since Frank's death. Samantha celebrated my employment with takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. "To new beginnings," she toasted, raising her wine glass to mine. That evening my phone chimed with a text from Travis. "Mom, this has gone on long enough. I want you to come home. Samantha is manipulating you to get back at me." I showed the message to Samantha, who rolled her eyes. Classic Travis. Everything must be about him somehow. For the first time, I felt strong enough to set a boundary with my son. I replied simply, "I'm not coming back, Travis. I found a job and I'm settling in well." I'd like to have lunch sometime when you're ready to talk without accusations. His response was immediate and angry. So you're choosing her over your own son? After everything I did for you? I turned off my phone, unwilling to let his manipulation spoil my accomplishment. He'll calm down eventually, Samantha reassured me. He always does when he doesn't get his way immediately. The weeks that followed brought unexpected joys and challenges. My job at the bookstore engaged my mind and introduced me to a community of readers and fellow book lovers. My coworkers, a mix of retirees and college students, became friends who invited me to book clubs and staff outings. Samantha introduced me to her circle of friends, women in their 30s and 40s who welcomed me without questioning the unusual living arrangement. Through them, I joined a walking group that met Saturday mornings at the local park. 1 month after starting my job, Samantha surprised me with a small celebration dinner. To surviving your first month of employment, she said, presenting me with a gift, a beautiful leather-bound journal. I thought you might want to write about this chapter of your life, she explained. Sometimes putting experiences on paper helps make sense of them. As I thanked her, I realized something profound had shifted in me. For the first time since Frank's death, I was looking forward rather than backward. The pain of Travis's rejection remained, but it no longer defined me. I was building something new, a life I hadn't imagined, but was growing to embrace. I never expected to be starting over at 58. I confessed to Samantha that night. Living with my ex-daughter-in-law, working at a bookstore, making new friends. The best stories are the ones we don't see coming, she replied with a smile. And Martha? You're doing amazingly well at your plot twist. I had been living with Samantha for nearly 2 months when the doorbell rang on a Sunday afternoon. We were both in loungewear, enjoying a lazy day of reading and occasional conversation. Samantha went to answer the door while I remained curled on the couch with my novel. You have got to be kidding me, I heard Samantha say, her voice tight with surprise and annoyance. I want to see my mother. Travis's voice carried clearly into the living room. I set down my book and moved to the entryway, where Travis stood on the threshold, his posture rigid with tension. Travis, I said, equally surprised and unsettled by his unannounced appearance. What are you doing here? Can we talk? He asked, pointedly looking past Samantha. Privately. Samantha stepped back. It's your call, Martha, she said quietly. After a moment's hesitation, I nodded. We can talk in the courtyard. The condo complex featured a small, landscape courtyard with benches and a fountain. As we sat, the gentle splashing of water provided background to an inherently uncomfortable conversation. This has gone on long enough, Travis began without preamble. It's time for you to come home. This isn't about coming home, Travis. I'm not a runaway teenager. You're living with my ex-wife, he said, as if that explained everything. Do you have any idea how that makes me look? People are talking. Of all the concerns he might have raised, his reputation hadn't occurred to me. Is that what this is about? How it looks to others? It's about loyalty, he countered. I took you in when you had nowhere to go, and this is how you repay me? By moving in with Samantha of all people. The old Martha might have apologized, might have tried to soothe his wounded pride, but something had changed in me over these past weeks. Let's talk about loyalty, I said calmly. I dedicated my life to being your mother. I worked extra shifts so you could go to soccer camp. Your father and I took out a second mortgage to help with your college tuition. When you and Samantha divorced, I supported you even though I cared for her too. And when you invited me to live with you, I tried everything to minimize my presence, taking shorter showers, using less electricity, eating smaller portions. Travis shifted uncomfortably. Mom! No, let me finish. I continued, my voice steady. You tracked my existence on a spreadsheet, Travis. You calculated the cost of keeping me alive in your home, the home you were able to buy because your father cashed in his life insurance to help with your down payment. You made me feel worthless, like a burden. That's not loyalty. That's not love. You're exaggerating, he protested, though his eyes couldn't meet mine. I was stressed about money. Everyone argues about finances sometimes. This wasn't an argument about finances. This was you deciding I wasn't worth the cost. After all I did for you, he attempted, falling back on his text message accusation. What exactly did you do for me, Travis? Offer me a temporary place to stay, then resent my presence every day? Make me feel like a burden for using water and electricity? Wave a $437 utility bill in my face, and tell me I was too expensive to keep? My direct confrontation of his behavior clearly caught him off guard. He had expected the same mother who had always smoothed things over, who had prioritized peace over honesty. I let you live with me for 6 months, he finally said, his voice smaller. And I'm grateful for that roof over my head, I acknowledged. But a home is more than a roof. It's a place where you feel valued, not calculated. Travis stood abruptly and paced toward the fountain. So that's it? You're choosing Samantha over me? Your own son. I'm not choosing anyone over you, Travis. I'm choosing myself, my dignity, my self-respect. For the first time since your father died, I'm building a life that feels meaningful. I have a job I enjoy. I'm making friends. I'm living with someone who treats me with respect. She's just using you to get back at me, he insisted, though the argument sounded hollow even to him. Not everything is about you, I said gently. Samantha offered me help when I needed it most. That's not about you. It's about her kindness and my need. Travis turned to face me, his expression a complex mixture of anger, confusion, and what might have been the first glimmer of shame. Without another word, he walked past me toward the condo entrance. Travis, I called after him. I love you. That hasn't changed. When you're ready to talk, really talk, I'm here. He paused briefly but didn't turn around before continuing to his car and driving away. I remained on the bench, emotion finally overcoming me as the adrenaline of confrontation faded. That's where Samantha found me minutes later, tears streaming down my face. She sat beside me without speaking, offering a tissue in her presence. I've never spoken to him like that, I finally said through tears. Not once in his entire life. You stood up for yourself, Samantha said. That's not something to feel bad about. Then why does it hurt so much? Because you love him, she answered simply. And because it's hard to accept that someone you love could treat you poorly. That evening, at Samantha's suggestion, I researched support groups for parents with difficult adult children. I found an online forum where others shared similar experiences, the guilt, the hurt, the complex emotions of setting boundaries with children you've spent a lifetime nurturing. You're not alone in this, one member wrote after I shared my story. Learning to prioritize your own well-being isn't selfish, it's necessary. Over the following weeks, I immersed myself in understanding the patterns that had defined my relationship with Travis. Through books, the support group, and conversations with Samantha, I began identifying ways I had enabled Travis's controlling behavior, my reluctance to confront issues directly, my tendency to smooth over conflicts, my prioritization of his comfort over my own needs. It's not about blame, my support group moderator emphasized during one session. It's about recognition and change. The approach of Thanksgiving brought new emotional challenges. It would be my first major holiday without Frank, and now without Travis as well. When Samantha invited me to join her family gathering, I hesitated. Won't it be awkward? I'm still Travis's mother. You're also Martha, she reminded me. A person in your own right, not just someone's mother or wife. Ultimately, I accepted her invitation and found myself welcomed into her family's celebration without question or judgment. Her parents, siblings, and their children embraced me as simply Samantha's friend Martha, a label that felt liberating in its simplicity. I sent Travis a Thanksgiving text. Thinking of you today. Love, Mom. He didn't respond, but I hadn't expected him to. Setting boundaries wasn't about cutting ties, it was about creating healthier ones, even if that process took time. As Christmas approached, I made another difficult decision. Rather than purchasing expensive gifts I couldn't afford, I wrote heartfelt letters to those I cared about, including Travis. In his letter, I expressed my love, acknowledged the pain of our situation, and affirmed my hope for reconciliation without sacrificing my newfound self-respect. A small package arrived from him on Christmas Eve. A simple silver bracelet with a note that read only, "Merry Christmas, Mom." It wasn't an apology or an acknowledgement of our conflict, but it was communication. a tiny bridge across the chasm between us. Baby steps, Samantha said when I showed her the gift. Healing isn't linear. By the new year, I had saved enough from my bookstore job to begin considering my own apartment. The prospect was both exciting and terrifying. True independence after decades of shared living, first with Frank and then with Travis and Samantha. There's no rush, Samantha assured me when I broached the subject. This arrangement works for me if it works for you. Her generosity gave me the space to heal and grow at my own pace, a gift I hadn't expected but deeply appreciated. For the first time in my adult life, I was making choices based not on necessity or obligation, but on my own desires and readiness. The Martha who had moved in with Travis after Frank's death, grieving, dependent, uncertain, was transforming into someone stronger, someone who understood her own worth beyond her roles as wife and mother. It was a painful metamorphosis, but necessary and ultimately liberating. 6 months after leaving Travis's house, I stood in the middle of my new apartment, surrounded by boxes yet to be unpacked but already feeling the satisfaction of having a space truly my own. The one-bedroom unit in a senior living community wasn't luxurious, but it was affordable on my bookstore salary combined with Social Security, and more importantly, it was mine. My savings account had grown steadily over my time with Samantha. Without rent to pay and with careful budgeting of my bookstore earnings, I had accumulated enough for a security deposit, first month's rent, and basic furnishings. Samantha had insisted I take the guest room furniture, saying it had always been on loan to me anyway. "I can't believe you're leaving me," she joked as she helped arrange my small living room. "Who's going to watch terrible reality TV with me now?" "I'm moving 10 minutes away, not to another country," I reminded her. "We still have our Tuesday night TV dates." The friendship that had developed between us defied conventional relationships. At 33 and 58, we might have been mother and daughter, but our connection felt more like sisters, women who had each experienced Travis's controlling nature and emerged stronger for it. We were arranging books on my new shelves when a knock at the door interrupted us. Through the peephole, I saw Travis standing in the hallway, a bouquet of flowers in hand. "It's Travis," I told Samantha, my heart suddenly racing. She straightened. "Do you want me to go? Or stay?" "Stay," I decided after a moment's thought. "But give us space to talk." When I opened the door, Travis looked different somehow. Less confident, perhaps, or simply more human. "Mom," he said, extending the flowers. "I heard you were moving in today. I thought you might like these for your new place." "Thank you," I said, accepting the bouquet and stepping back to allow him entry. "That's thoughtful of you." His eyes found Samantha immediately, and his expression tightened. "I didn't realize you'd be here." "I'm helping Martha settle in," Samantha replied neutrally. "I'll give you two some privacy." She retreated to the kitchen, visible but not within earshot. Travis and I sat on my new sofa, an uncomfortable silence stretching between us. "Nice place," he finally offered, looking around. "Seems cozy." "It is," I agreed. "Small but all I need." Another silence fell before Travis spoke again. "Mom, I've been doing some thinking. About everything that happened. About how I treated you." I waited, allowing him the space to continue without prompting. "I wasn't fair to you," he admitted, staring at his hands. "When Dad died and you needed help, I offered, but then I resented you for accepting. That wasn't right." It wasn't quite an apology, but it was an acknowledgement, perhaps all he was capable of at this point. "Thank you for saying that," I replied. "It means a lot to hear you recognize that." "I'd like us to try again," he said, looking up. "To rebuild our relationship. Maybe regular dinners or something." "I'd like that too," I said carefully. "But things would need to be different, Travis. I can't go back to walking on eggshells or feeling like a burden." "I understand," he nodded, though I wondered if he truly did. "Monthly dinners? My treat." "That sounds like a good start," I agreed. As Travis prepared to leave, he glanced toward the kitchen where Samantha was pretending to be busy. Is this arrangement with Samantha over now that you have your own place?" "If you're asking if Samantha and I will stay friends, then yes, absolutely," I answered firmly. "She's been a tremendous support to me, Travis. That won't change." He frowned but nodded. I suppose I'll have to get used to that. Yes, I said simply. You will. After he left, Samantha emerged from the kitchen. That seemed to go better than last time. Baby steps, I echoed her earlier wisdom. Healing isn't linear. The months that followed brought gradual, cautious rebuilding of my relationship with Travis. Our monthly dinners were initially awkward, conversations carefully avoiding sensitive topics. But slowly, meal by meal, we began finding our way back to each other, not as the mother and son we had been, but as the adults we now were, with clearer boundaries and expectations. Travis never fully warmed to my ongoing friendship with Samantha, but he came to accept it as part of the new normal. When Vanessa eventually moved on, apparently finding Travis's financial scrutiny as intolerable as I had, he didn't immediately blame Samantha's influence on me as he might have months earlier. My job at the bookstore evolved into a position I treasured. Judy, recognizing my organizational skills and connection with customers, promoted me to events coordinator, where I arranged author signings and book club meetings. Through this role, I found myself unexpectedly mentoring other women my age who were also navigating major life transitions. You should consider leading a workshop, Judy suggested after watching me counsel a recently widowed customer. There are so many women out there facing what you faced. Loss, starting over, rebuilding. The idea took root, and with Samantha's help through her nonprofit connections, I developed a 4-week course called Reinvention After Loss. The first session attracted 12 participants, all women over 50 facing transitions they hadn't chosen but needed to navigate. Martha helped me see that starting over isn't just for the young. One participant wrote in her evaluation, "At 62, I thought my story was winding down. Now I see it's just taking an unexpected turn." My modest apartment became a home, decorated with treasured photos and new mementos from this unexpected chapter of life. Samantha was a frequent visitor, as were new friends from work and my support groups. Even Travis came occasionally, each visit a little more relaxed than the last. For my housewarming 2 months after moving in, I hosted a small gathering. Samantha helped with preparations, and to my surprise, Travis attended, bringing a houseplant and a bottle of wine. He stayed only briefly but made an effort to be pleasant, even exchanging civil words with Samantha. As my guests mingled in my small living room, I stepped back to observe the scene. My new friends chatting with old ones, my son making an effort, my former daughter-in-law now my closest friend. None of this was the life I had planned or expected, yet it had become a life I valued deeply. Later, after everyone had gone, Samantha helped me wash the last few glasses. "Penny, for your thoughts," she said, noticing my contemplative mood. "I was just thinking about how strange life's paths can be," I replied. A year ago, I was grieving Frank, living with Travis, feeling lost and dependent. I never could have imagined ending up here. And yet here you are, she smiled, thriving. "You know what the strangest part is?" I continued. "If Travis hadn't waved that utility bill in my face, if he hadn't made me feel so unwanted, I might still be there, smaller, sadder, less myself. Sometimes the people who hurt us most show us exactly where we need to go," Samantha observed. "My son's rejection led me to find not just a home but myself," I agreed. "And in the end, that's too valuable to put a price tag on." What unexpected doors might open for you if you find the courage to walk away from where you're not valued? I hope my story inspires you to recognize your worth and never settle for being treated as a burden. Life can begin again at any age when we honor ourselves enough to demand dignity and respect. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, and share in the comments a time when a painful rejection ultimately led you somewhere better. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that your value is not determined by anyone else's calculation.